Um, Today I want to show you something what would be on the mind of a beginner woodworker with the lathe. Somebody as I would. This is the fourth day that I had this beautiful Nova Comet 2 MIDI lathe. And one thing you want to do is get as much practice as you can. Now, getting wood to turn can be quite expensive if you're just trying to try out stuff. So what I have done, I've actually looked into our firewood stack, which sometimes includes pieces of wood like this, right? Now, I have to say I only brought this one out as an example because I prefer actually to use them a little bit smaller. But we get this firewood from a guy that manages a forest, so you know it's not wood being chopped for the sake of producing wood. It's wood that's being chopped for the maintenance of a forest. So you know, a little bit more green, a little bit less guilty about destroying the environment. So we get like a couple of tons of these logs in, and sometimes you have like pieces of this unsplit log, which I thought this is all ash, so it's hardwood, which I thought, like, hey, you know, if I want to experiment with new techniques or trying out stuff, this would be like perfect, right? Now I actually selected already a log that's on the lathe already, and I've really been working on this, as you can see, to make a usable piece of wood out of this. Because it is firewood and it's not especially sold as wood that you would get into a shop to start a project on, there's just a couple of things you have to be aware about. Now, if you would look at this log, you'll see it will have cracks in it, right? And same as here, okay? Now, I won't go through the process of how I got this everything very smooth. I can tell you that if you do want to start with something small. This is actually a bit too big. And actually I tried this one, it was too big, so I went for something smaller. But first thing you want to do is make it as round as possible. I might make a video of how I actually go about that. But I really wanted to get into an important piece of information. If you do decide to use firewood for a lathing project, or just practicing your skills or honing your skills, especially if you've got some hardwood firewood, it's great to get started on, and you know, it saves you a little bit of money as well, not having to go to the shop every time you want to start with a little project. So as you can see, I already have this in the lathe. I already have it shaved down somewhat, and as you probably can see, I do have cracks here, right? So if I want to start using this to make a bowl, it's going to have cracks in it. It might crack further, and actually the piece might break. Okay, so what I do, and I'll show you, I'll just like get the camera out of there, right? I kind of like take a look at the cracks and how far they go, right? And I just like turn around and make sure I have identified all the cracks. Then I draw a line to where I think the cracks will end, right? And that's, I think, or at least where I know I should be cutting in and getting rid of that piece. Now, I've already done that same part on the other side, and as you can see, there are some cracks in there as well, some really big ones. So I've done the same. I marked it down a bit, right? And when I actually started cutting away the bits, and you might wonder, like, okay, I'm leaving this here, that's because basically I'm going to cut this bit here, so this bit can go into the claw there, right? So I now have the opportunity to kind of like see if those cracks that I found here are actually going through, right? Okay, so what I do notice here is right here you can see a tiny little crack there. Okay, so that tells me that I actually have to take another layer off this, layer by layer, until I see no more evidence of that one crack. Okay, I've got rid of most of them, just this one that I need to keep going, right? So once I've done that, I will have a piece of wood that I know, okay, it doesn't have any cracks, and I can make something out of it, a pot or a cup or a little wooden box or something like that. So I'm going to continue with this part, trying to get rid of that, and when I've done this part, I'm going to go and shear this part in just to see how far those cracks go. Put it back into a little mount. There we go. Always use protection. So before I switch the lathe on, make sure that everything is secure. There we go. I get my cutting tool. Oh, I forgot something. Right, make sure your tool rest is in place. Right, and don't adjust it while the lathe is turning. I mean, the best of luck, if you do touch the piece, you know you're going to have like big chunks flying out and basically damaging your wood, and that's in the best of cases. Otherwise, like, you could actually have the piece breaking off and, you know, hitting you in the face, or even worse. Okay, so check, check, check. Turning the lathe, make sure it doesn't catch anywhere. Mask on. Quick clean of the goggles. And there we go. So I'm just going to get the width of my cutting tool. I'm going to shave that off. So, probably noticed the glasses and the mask are not a luxury, because I do like to stand in front of my work. It does mean you get a lot of stuff thrown in your face. Actually, faceplate would be better and actually recommend it, but okay. So, let's have a look and see how much I've shaved off, if the crack actually has gone. So we're slowly rotating, inspecting it. Right, okay, and I can actually see a little bit of the crack here. Now, we can do two things, right? We can continue shaving off, or I would say, like, okay, I'm probably going to make a pot out of this, or a bowl. That means I would get rid of the inner part and make sure that the outer ring is uncracked. So, and this is just a quar, as you call it. So I'm not too concerned about that. So it looks good to me. Okay. So basically, I'm going to do the same with this side, and then I would have hopefully come out with a piece of usable wood to make a object out of it about that big, right? So as you can see, I'm losing about almost 2/3 to a half of wood to turn the log into a usable piece of wood for a project. And you might say, okay, that may be a little bit much of a waste, but look, all this waste, right? I'm going to suck it up in my trusty vacuum, and actually is going to be very helpful to quickly start a fire. So, you know, there's no waste of real wood. It was intended as firewood, so the bits and pieces that we're not going to use, we're going to use anyway. So, I hope this gave you some ideas and some tips on using cheap firewood to get acquainted with your lathe and try different techniques without having you to cost a bundle. Alright, thanks, bye bye.